Hello, friends! I begin this video by reminding everyone that there is no correlation between the size of one's clothes and the size of one's character. I really want to increase the size range of my brand, but as someone who has never been plus size, I don't feel like I am qualified to be designing for plus size bodies. I have read a few articles online and I even interviewed someone, but that does not make me an expert. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. If I am wrong, feel free to rip me up in the comments. In one of the articles I read, which I will link below, two things stood out to me that I can absolutely incorporate into my designs for any size, really, but today we're talking about plus size. I want to flatter the body, not necessarily flatten it. So, one, elongate the body. Suggestions include monochrome head to toe, wearing high heels, v-necks, and midi length, not maxi length skirts. And the second idea is to define the waist. Belts and flared skirts help with this. The person I interviewed stated that she particularly would like to see more A-line skirts and more tulip skirts in plus sizes. She also stated that her experience is that she can fluctuate several pounds throughout the day, particularly around menstruation, and would like to see more clothing that can accommodate this. Probably by using fabrics that include spandex or a hidden stretchy panel. Based on this advice, what am I going to design today? A midi-length A-line skirt with belt loop and decent sized pockets, of course. When I drew this, I didn't have a particular fabric in mind, other than that it should have some spandex in it. Now I have the fabric in hand. It is a ivory colored pinwheel corduroy, and as you can see, it's got a pretty good stretch to it because it's got spandex in it. Fun fact, the whales in corduroy are the um ridges, I guess. They're called whales. You know, like the big animal that swims around in the ocean. They're called whales. Pinwhales are really small. Elephant whales are really big. And no, you will not find pinwhales swimming around the ocean. Or elephant whales, I don't think. Yeah, in any case, I have the fabric here. And I have some blue ribbon trim and some blue decorative buttons that I think will look absolutely smashing on that white fabric. It'll be a mostly monochromatic look, but I mean, if someone was wearing just solid white on white on white, you might think they're getting married today. So that's what I got to say about that. Now, let's get into the design process. One of the reasons that I've decided that the skirt is the way to go is because as long as you've got the waist measurement correctly and then it's like a flared skirt, you don't have to worry too much about whether or not the hips and butt are going to be too big or too small because as long as they are bigger than the butt, then it's fine. Because, flared skirts. I find that this is true even as a straight size person. So I imagine it's probably even more so for a plus size body, but I wouldn't know. Let me know if this is true for you.
So I'm not going to bother measuring myself because I'm making this obviously not in my size. Very conveniently, I have the measurements of a plus size individual. So I measured an actual person for this, by the way. But I am going to show you a tip, all right, that is probably more important for plus size individuals, but is ideally a good trick to have for anyone. And that's dress forms are almost always completely flat here, but people are seldom perfectly flat in that area. Most people have at least a little bit of humping here. So I want you to place a ruler on the front of your abdomen before you measure your hips. And that way, it will prevent any sort of extra pulling in this area that makes you look even bigger. It's a little bit awkward to get the tape measure around yourself while holding the ruler, but it is completely doable. However, if you have someone to help you, that's even better. So, if I have the ruler in front of me, then my measurements are 42.25 versus no ruler, where my measurements are 40.5. So yeah, it's a big difference. And that's what I got to say about that. Got my trusty textbook here. You probably, if you watch the trouser video, then, well, you actually already pretty much know how to draft a skirt, because you just do all of that, but without the crotch part. But I'm gonna go through it anyway, because I can. I mean, I have to do it anyway, so I might as well film it. So I'm gonna start by drawing a line down the middle of the paper. Oh yeah, you're gonna want all the drafting tools, big paper, long ruler, like extra long ruler, yardstick if you got it, curves, possibly a tracing wheel, all that stuff. Yeah. Center, front, hip, depth. For most people, this is between 7 and 9. So if you're right around there, you're probably fine. If you are way out of that range, you might want to measure again. As we are making this for a bigger individual, being a little bit bigger even than 9, like by just a little bit, is probably fine. I would be very concerned if the person was like less than 7, unless you're like this tall. I'm gonna go with 9. And we're gonna make a mark there, and we're gonna label it C. And we are going to square out at the top for the number that is the hip arc. So, oh, by the way, this side is the front and this side is the back. All right. So, here we have front hip arc. And here we have the back hip arc. And then we're going to square out from here the same measurement. Obviously, you'll want whatever is the appropriate measurement for you. And we can draw a line here too. And up here. The individual that I measure has a waist to ankle of 37.5, which is that long. So that's how long I'm going to measure out. So that's how long I'm going to measure down here. 37.5. And then I'm going to mark out the same amount as the hip arc in there. So this is the side seam, and this over here is the center front seam, and this is the center back seam. On the back, we will measure in from the center the waist arc plus a 1/4 inch at ease, and however much you are going to take the darts in. I have chosen 2 inches, which means right here. I'm going to make a mark. That is, and we're going to do almost the same thing on the front, but I'm only going to increase for darts by 1 inch. So we'll make a mark here, and we will label it M. And I have marked for the darts here. That is entirely going to depend on your individual body, how much dart you want to take up. Get out your hip curve because you're going to need it now. And we are going to go down approximately 1/4 inch there and up approximately 1/4 inch on the other side of it. So we now have a curved line for the back, and we are going to make a curved line for the front too. However, we're not going down significantly in the front. We're just going up a little bit in the side. Now I'm going to find the middle of the dart, and I'm going to draw a line down from the middle of the dart, or that is the middle of the, yeah. On the back, I'm going to go for 5.5 inches. Nice long dart. Do this for both back darts, and do this for the front dart as well, but the front dart's generally a little bit shorter. I'm going to go for 3.5. And your dart is entirely like subjective to your particular body. So yeah. I guess what I mean is that, like, depending on what your body looks like is going to determine how long your darts are, how wide your darts are. I've said this like a gazillion times already. But yeah, not a lot of difference between your waist and hip, then you will have small darts, and if you are someone who has a lot of difference, then you will have big darts. In fact, there's not even a rule that your 2 darts have to match each other. Like, you could have one long one and one short one if you wanted to. There is no reason that your darts have to match. And the very last step here is that we are going to draw a curved line from this point at the side all the way down to the hip line. On both sides. Huzzah! You have drafted a skirt pattern! So if you are making a straight skirt, you are done. Just add seam allowance and a rectangle waistband and or yoke and call it good. But we are not making a straight skirt, so I have more work to do. Oh, and you should probably make a mock-up. So here's my plan of attack. I am going to eliminate both the front darts and one of the back darts by partially tracing the front and then rotating it slightly to eliminate the dart. So maybe I better explain better what I'm going to do. So imagine that there was a line going all the way through the center of the dart, and then continued on all the way to the bottom of the pattern, we would be squeezing the dart shut here and opening it up here. All right? Does that make sense? I could just as easily draw a line and cut to the point, but I'm not going to because I don't want to ruin my sloper, and I honestly think it's just as easy to not cut into it and to just rotate the pattern a little bit on that point and then on that point. So I'm gonna put some cans on here to make sure that it stays where I want it to. And I will draw all the way to the centermost leg of the first dart. And I will draw in approximately that much. I'm going to take away this can. And so imagine that there was a pin sticking here in this point of the dart. Okay? I'm going to rotate this to close this dart. And then straighten this out. Weight it. And draw this slight curve between the darts. And of course, the hem is a little bit less important. I don't want to say that the hem is not important. However, at this point, the hem is slightly less important than the waist. Just saying. And I'm going to do the same thing with this dart. Remove the can. Remove the can. Okay, now imagine there's a pin right here at this point. And we're going to rotate around it to close that dart. And another can there. And I'm going to continue on drawing the waist. And generally, the curviness at the hip will be eliminated by like just drawing extra a little bit of flare out at the side, which is kind of an abstract thing. Like, you know, I'll just draw the side and then I will get out the ruler and show you what I mean. Since this is going to end up wider at the hip now, there's really no reason to have it curving that much. Let's move you down here. You're not in the way. Get out our big ruler. Okay, it helps to determine just how much extra you want to add out here. And I'm going to add an extra 2 inches. That's all. So lining up that end with the line that I just drew, and with like the midpoint between the hip and the waist is about where I draw this line. So we are eliminating just a little bit of curviness there, not a whole lot. In fact, I will take a picture of it for you. Remember when I said that the hem is slightly less important? Well, that's because I want a midi length, not a maxi length. So I am going to make it approximately I'm going to make it exactly 6 inches shorter than it was because I don't want it ankle length. I want it somewhere kind of between, like somewhere kind of between the knee and the ankle. You know, midi length. You're in the way again. And of course, now I have to add seam allowance and hem allowance. I know, this seems really stupid that I just cut off 6 inches and now I'm gonna add on 2 more, but here we are. I'm gonna go for 3/8. I'm making a rather interesting pocket. I made note of where exactly I want to put it. As you can probably see by the drawing, I wanted the pocket to also be the belt loop. I had a pair of shorts like that once and I thought it was pretty cool. So I'm going to measure, I'm going to square out from the center front seam to where I marked on the side where I want the pocket to be. I'm going to draw a line that connects all those points. This is the general shape of the pocket. I'm gonna have like the hand like come up, like the part where you stick your hand in, I'm gonna have it come up sort of like that, I think. I'm gonna have it a little bit more angular than straight. Like, I'm gonna have it straight here and then like curve here, I guess, a little bit. It's gonna be great. Something that I personally do not like is when a pair of something does not have enough belt loops and my belt ends up like pulling up above where the waist of the pants or the skirt is. Like, that really bugs me. I think I don't want that to be quite that long. Maybe just more like here. And then it's gonna kind of curve a little bit down there. I have a curve ruler and I'm gonna use it. Yes, I think I like this. So I'm gonna trace all of this, and that is going to be the pocket, and I'm gonna sew it directly onto the skirt front. And of course, this is gonna have to have a facing because I can't turn that under. So yeah, this is just gonna have a real little seam allowance here and some seam allowance around there. I'm gonna do that. Here I am doing almost the exact same thing to the back, but I'm only going to eliminate one dart. I'm only going to eliminate the side dart. So I'm going to trace the pattern up into that dart leg that is closest to center back, but you know, only the dart that I'm going to eliminate. I don't, I'm going to keep the other dart in there. So I need to make a mark for this dart. The easiest way to do that is to poke a hole right through it and make a dot. And then, of course, mark the tops of the darts. So, just like I did on the other one, as if there were a pin in this dart, and I'm going to pivot the pattern to close the dart legs. And then continue on tracing from there. And in order to make it a little bit less pointy in that area, I will be using the curved ruler to smooth it out a little bit. And we finish tracing all the way around. The reason that I'm not closing both darts is because the back darts are actually significantly bigger. They're literally twice as big as the front darts. The back darts are twice as big as the front darts. So if I were to eliminate both of them, the flare would be much bigger in the back than in the front. And that would be funny looking, I guess. If I was going to make a truly flared skirt, then I absolutely would do that, and I'd have to balance the patterns. But in this case, I'm actually making more of an A-line shape. From what I understand, the A-line flatters almost any body type, really. I say almost because there's someone out there who's like, no, I look like shit when I wear an A-line skirt. There's always somebody that looks terrible in something. But there's also a lot of things that look good on most people, and then there's also a lot of things that only look good on certain people. Something that I'm really curious about, if you guys have any ideas, is that I would really like to know if there's some kind of garment or style out there that looks better on plus size individuals than it does on straight size. I would be really curious to know if such a thing exists and what it is. So leave me a comment if you have any ideas. I'm going to mark. Well, this ruler is so big, but I put an extra 2 inches on the front, so I got to put an extra 2 inches on the back. And I'm going to eliminate a little bit of the curviness in the hip area because the hip is now much bigger than it was before. There's that. And I have to also, I gotta draw the dart legs. And I said I was going to curve the top, so I'm gonna do that. Drawing the dart legs. As I said, this is a little bit pointy and that can be kind of awkward, so I'm going to just use my curve ruler to make it a little less awkward. There. Oh yeah, making the bottom 6 inches shorter because that's what I did on the front. And it's kind of weird to be like, make it 6 inches shorter and then add 2 more inches to it for the hem, but that's technically the way we're supposed to do it. Should probably make that curve a little bit less pointy also. I'm going to use my less dramatic curve for that. Alright, there's that. And something that I should mention is that I would like to put back pockets on it too, and I'm just borrowing a back pocket pattern from a pair of pants that I made actually. These are really easy to draw. And a patch pocket actually can be almost any shape you want it to be, as long as it's practical enough to hold your stuff. The back just needs seam allowance now. Something that I would like to talk about. Let me just not make a shadow here. Okay, so you've probably seen that symbol before if you've ever sewn anything, and that means that this goes on the fold. So with a flared skirt, I actually could make the grain line go more down this way if I wanted to put a center back seam in it, and that would actually give it a much nicer hang, but it also takes up a lot more fabric, and I am working with a limited supply of fabric, so I will most likely be putting it on the fold. I absolutely would, if I could, have the better grain line of it going this way instead of this way. But I probably do not have enough fabric to do that. So it's going on the fold. It will still look fine. This, having the grain line go straight up and down. Like, okay, maybe I should like do a demonstration. What I mean by this is that I'm gonna have the grain line going straight up and down because it takes less fabric to do this and I'm working with a limited supply of fabric. If I had an unlimited quantity of fabric, I would actually have the grain line going more like this. And that makes the skirt hang a lot nicer. However, it takes up a lot more fabric to do so. So it's not really as good for the planet because you need more fabric and end up wasting more fabric to do that. Like, there isn't necessarily more fabric in the skirt to do this, but I mean like the bits that get cut away, and I don't necessarily have a plan for those at this time, if there was enough, but maybe I should try to do that, but I'm not going to. The grain line's gonna go straight up and down, like this. Yeah, that's what I got to say about that. Grief, I am a moron! I just cut off my seam allowance. Time to take my pattern together! I just love when you just cut the wrong thing. This time I cut on the correct line. Now I'm going to make a facing. So, for the back, I'm going to trace both the stitching line and the seam allowance. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm actually tracing. I can see through the paper, and I will make sure that my lines are nice and straight by using the ruler on the straight parts. How big do I want my facing to be? 4 inches? I want a nice wide facing. So I'm gonna mark 4 inch. You can't even see what I'm doing. I'm not even on camera. As I was saying, I'm gonna mark 4 inches down. Oh, and I better draw the dart legs as well. Since I'm going to use the serger to finish the edge of the facing, I don't need to add seam allowance. However, if you are going to turn it under and hem it, then you will need to add some hem allowance to it. So, I don't want the extra bulk of having a dart or a seam in my facing. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the skirt, and I'm going to close it by pinching it shut, pretty much. All right, and that is what it's going to look like. I'll put some tape there to hold it in place. I know, like, Scotch tape is traditionally what's used, the, like, clear tape, but I am trying to save the planet, so I have biodegradable, compostable paper tape. No plastic. So, gotta make our markings that this is the center back, and we're gonna put that on fold. To reiterate, I traced the top and then I pinched shut the dart by opening up this. Like, I opened below the point of the dart here, okay? I trimmed that open, okay? And then I folded my dart shut, and now I can do all in one piece, no extra bulk here. I also trued the top of it to make it less pointy. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go in just about 1/16 of an inch. And the reason for this is because a thing that's like, in order to go nicely inside, it has to be ever so slightly smaller. Sewing teacher in college referred to this as the donut principle. The inner circle has to be smaller than the outer circle. I guess you could think of the waistband as being a circle, since it kind of goes around your body in a circular manner. Not a geometry circle, but you know,
goes now the circular motion.
Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. I'm gonna cut this out now. And the front is gonna be done exactly the same way, except you don't have to close the dart because there is no more dart. So you just trace it and then bring the inside in just a little bit. So I'm gonna do that. And here we have all of the completed pattern pieces. As I said, I'm working with a very limited quantity of fabric, and I may have to put the unseen parts of a different fabric, which actually could work out in our favor, because corduroy is thick. And if I make the facing out of something thinner, that's a little bit less bulk in the waist area, which is probably something that plus size people would appreciate. So that's what I'm gonna do. Hope I got something that'll work. If not, I might have to go take a trip. It's a good thing these are on the inside of the skirt because they are two slightly different shades of white. Can't really argue with a 25-cent thrift store piece though. And this is all of what's left of the fabric. So this, I think this is like quilting cotton, so I could totally compost that. But this, I'm pretty sure it's cotton, but I can't guarantee it's cotton. And this is 95% cotton, 5% spandex. And unfortunately, that 5% spandex means that it has to go in the trash and not the compost. That's what I got to say about that. I've got my darts marked, and now I'm sewing them. By marked, I mean I have a notch at the top, and I have a tailor's tack at the bottom. The point of the dart. As always, do not backstitch the point! I come back into the flesh of the dart, and that's where I put my back tack. This is the combination pocket and belt loop, and I'm sewing the facing on, and I've got some pins in it. Mostly because this is stretchy stuff and I don't want it to go anywhere on me. So I'm just gonna sew it down. Oh, and I have already serged the edge of the facing. Corduroy is kind of bulky stuff, so I don't want to be like turning under the edge. Definitely better to serge it. And then I'm gonna clip this corner right here. Do not clip through the stitching. Now I'm going to take my tube turner and I'm going to stick it up into the belt loop. Not quite all the way, but I'm going to push this down and this is going to turn it right side out. And then we're just going to pop it off and push that out. Yeah. And of course now I have to press. While I'm here, I might as well press down the hem and seam allowance of the back pocket. I've also got the top edge serged. Like I said, corduroy is bulky and I don't want any extra bulk of having to like turn it under twice, so. I'm just sewing down the facing here. First, I'm going to baste over the belt loops just to keep them in place so they don't go anywhere. Stitching the pockets on, and it's basically an edge stitch. It actually does help to keep this end elevated a little bit. That way it goes through the machine easier. It doesn't like get caught on the edge of the table. But yeah, it can actually be a little bit awkward to have like large bulkiness under the arm of the machine, but that's life. You sew, you get used to it. When I get to this exact spot where the belt loop begins and the pocket ends, needle down, pivot, and then we're going to change to the zigzag stitch. We're going to use a bar tack. We're gonna do a bar tack, I guess. I'm not doing the widest width. I think I'm going to go with a 3. And I'm going to bar tack across here. And we're done. Now we do the other pocket, same way. Here's the ribbon. And so what I want is for the ribbon to go like here and then pivot and come up this way. So I'm going to cut it a little bit longer than it actually takes to go that distance. And I'm going to cut 2 of them because, you know, I'm going to do the other side. Of course I spilled my pins. Okay, so at the point where I want it to pivot, I'm going to put a pin. And I'm going to stitch a 90-degree angle, by which I mean a 45-degree angle, to make this into a right angle. So you see now, we have a 90-degree angle in this ribbon. And it will sit on the fabric. I pin the ribbon down, and now I'm stitching through it. I'm using the zipper foot because I want to be able to get close, very close to the pocket without actually stitching onto it, and I think that the zipper foot is a good way to do that. And when stitching near the belt loop, I am careful not to accidentally stitch the belt loop, otherwise one would not be able to use it. So as you can see, the edge of the foot is just gliding very nicely along the edge of the pocket.
Well, as nice as this machine can glide anyway. I know it's kind of a old, a little bit feisty sometimes. Of course, be very careful pivoting around. Switch back to the regular foot, and now I'm going to sew down the other side of the ribbon. Try to make sure that your little fold is tucked underneath the ribbon. And of course, as always, make sure you do the same thing to the other side. In an effort to make the skirt a little bit more easy to alter if one decides to do that, I am individually serging each side seam, like serging the front and back separately and then stitching them together. That way it's a little bit easier if someone wanted to take it in a little bit. Easier to make alterations. I don't have an invisible zipper foot, so I use my regular zipper foot to insert my invisible zippers. Which, by the way, this one I actually did cut out of something else. This is a channel all about, like, thrifting, upcycling, fixing things. But so one of the ways, one of the first things to make it easier to insert the invisible zipper is to press it. It wants to, like, sort of curl in on itself, and I find it's a little bit easier if I press that open first before I try to sew on it. Yeah, if you have an invisible zipper foot, use that. But I don't. They probably make one for my machine. I got a pretty popular machine, but I don't really want to invest in one because, like, I'd rather, like, invest in a new machine, but that costs a lot of money, and eventually I'll get there. And then once I invest in the new machine, then I'll get a bunch of cool attachments for it, like an invisible zipper foot. But for now, this is how we do it. So I'm going to measure from the zipper how long the zipper is against the side seam, which traditionally they're put in the left side seam, but you could put it in either one if you wanted to. And I'm going to put a pin here where the zipper stop is, and I'm going to sew the side seam shut. Well, I'm going to sew it shut from the pin down. I have the zipper foot on the machine right now. I'm going to use this button here to push the needle further to the side. This does mean that the stitching guide is no longer accurate, but that doesn't matter in this application. I want the needle as far to the side as possible so that I can stitch down my invisible zipper as close to the teeth as absolutely possible, which is why the needle has to be at the very edge of the foot. I'm not overly concerned about what's inside the seam allowance, but where it's actually seen, Where the zipper is, don't sew through the zipper, but you do have to get really, really close to it. And it is definitely 100% okay to go slow and get it nice and perfect. And yes, it is also okay to put an invisible zipper in the same seam that is holding the pocket. I don't think I would do a lapped or centered zipper in that same pocketed seam, but an invisible zipper here where the pocket is, that's fine. I have done this before. I'm not sure if I said it earlier or not, but the zipper traditionally goes on the left side, but you could definitely put it on either side. Like if I don't know, like didn't have a left hand or something, I would definitely be putting my zipper on the right side. So as you can see, I'm pulling the zipper teeth so that they lay flat. It can be a little bit awkward to try to be like holding it open and pulling the fabric. It's even more awkward when I have to lean sideways because I've got a camera stand on my desk. I don't know if I've said this yet on my channel, but like, don't sew your finger. It hurts. We are approaching the spot where the stitching below the zipper stops. And when we get there, we are going to back tack. Stitch as absolutely close to it as you can, and then do a couple of back tack stitches. With the zipper partially closed, I'm going to stitch the end of it into the seam allowance, just sort of basting it in place so that it doesn't go anywhere. And now I'm going to open it back up. And at least as close as I can. Like, I can't really, I can't sew the invisible zipper with it closed. Because then I couldn't, like, roll the teeth over to sew right next to them. So I have to do it with the zipper open. But unfortunately, that does mean that I can't really get all the way to the bottom. But it's fine, because I actually usually sew shut the seam, like just above the bottom. That's what I got to say about that. So now I'm doing the other side, sewing as close to the teeth as I possibly can. But this time, we have to make sure top of the zipper lines up with the top of the fabric. And if you have to hold that in place, then you have to hold that in place. You could totally baste it if you wanted to baste it before you sew it, but I usually don't because I don't usually have too much of a problem. As long as you've measured correctly. And of course, you can back tack when you get to the end. I have switched to the other foot, and I'm going to sew the right side seam, which is probably the easiest thing I'm going to do on this one.
sewing on the tag, I have decided to do away with putting sizing on garments that, like, there's only one of. If there's only one of something, there's no point in putting a size on it because there's just one. You know what I mean? Like, if you're buying this on, well, wherever you're buying it from, you're gonna go based on measurements, right? Like, even though I've decided to design this as a 1X, like, it doesn't need to say 1X on it because there's only one of them. What matters most is that it fits the wearer. Modern clothing sizing is a really big rabbit hole that I'm not gonna go down right now. I'm sewing the side of the facing, the side seam of the facing, exactly the same as I did for the main body, where I serged the edges and now I'm sewing it together. I have also serged the bottom edge of the facing. I don't want the extra bulk of it being hemmed. I notched the center front and of the center front of the facing and the main body, as well as the center back, and I'm pinning the facing to the main body. I know it's June, but like it is like cold and gloomy today. It's a perfect day to stay inside and sew. This is a little tab on which I could sew a snap or a button depending on which I decide to use at the top of the zipper. I don't usually like to use hook and eyes because I find that they get caught on things. I just find them to be horribly inconvenient and I don't use them. So this gets tucked into the top of the zipper. Gets tucked into the top of the zipper, and then the other side will have a snap or a button. So when I stitch down the facing, I don't necessarily want it to be too close to the zipper. I don't want it to interfere with the function of the zipper, so it has to be a little bit away from it. And it's going to be on the inside, so it doesn't really matter if the zipper tape is showing on the inside, because it's going to show below the facing anyway. Right, and that is what the inside is going to look like. The button tab in the facing zone now. And now I will do the other side, which is exactly the same but no button tab. Nearing the end now, I'm doing a line of edge stitching at the top of the skirt, just to try to make sure that the facing stays on the inside. This is both decorative and functional. There are other ways to make sure that the facing stays on the inside that don't involve top stitching, but I think top stitching looks pretty good here, so that's what I'm gonna do. We're coming up now to the first belt loop, and I am in fact going to stitch right over it. yes, I find it helpful to lift the foot and sort of start pushing the belt loop underneath of it. And sewing slowly helps as well to make sure that the needle doesn't get bent on its way down. Next up, I'm going to make the belt loops. I'm going to make the belt loops. Yep. So belts even can be kind of tricky. At least I have experienced where like the belt like sort of pulls above the waistband of the pants and can get kind of uncomfortable. I don't usually wear belts with skirts, but I'm putting belt loops on the skirt anyway because I read that it's a good way to help define the waist on a plus size individual. So I'm gonna do that. So this skirt's gonna have belt loops. And in order to avoid that problem where the belt pulls above the waistband of the pants, I think the solution to that may be to just have more belt loops. Like instead of just having 3 wimpy belt loops across the back, maybe you do like 5 or 6. It's sunny today. Good thing I'm almost done. I can't wait to go outside. Going to edge stitch the belt loops because I think it looks nice. Alright, so the finished size of the belt loop is 2.5 inches, which means that's how big I want these belt loops to be. Oh, good. My belt is only 1.5 inches. I think this is a pretty common size for a belt. So even if somebody wanted to go a little bit wider on their belt, they could. So in order to make the belt loops a finished size of 2.5 inches, I think that I should make them a 3.25 before sewing. So that's how long I'm going to make them. So I can tuck the ends in and zigzag over them. So here's the center back, and I think that I'm actually going to have 2 belt loops there, and then I think I'm going to put 1 on each dart, and then I'll put 1 just to the back of the side seam. I think that should be plenty of belt loops. I probably wouldn't want to wear a belt with pants that had a side zip, but with a skirt, well, when it comes to going to the bathroom, you don't actually have to pull it down. We actually pull them up. But with pants, that would be like a real hassle if I had to like completely undo my belt and then undo a zipper. recently learned how to do a blind hem, and I'm very excited to do it on this garment. So my machine comes with this foot here, and it's got this like sort of groove on the back, on the bottom of it, and the folded edge of the fabric slides in that groove. So I'm just gonna pop this foot on here, and see there's the edge where the fold goes. So I have a lot of pins in here because my iron isn't working. So I have pins to hold it in place. I tried using my flat iron, but so it worked kinda, but I'm also a little bit concerned about getting whatever's on my hair onto somebody else's white garment. So I had to clean the flat iron first, and it's still only, it's small, and it's only good for things that need to be flat. I tried using the steamer, but it wasn't crispy enough for this application. Yeah. So in any case, we have this folded edge of the, why is it so dark? I don't know. We have this folded edge of the fabric here, lined up with this ridge, and I'm going to make a stitch here, and that's going to be the visible one on the outside. I'm going to make a stitch there, and that's going to be a little stitch that's only on the inside. And there's going to be a couple of stitches on the inside, and then one slightly bigger stitch that is visible on the outside. I have my thread trapped in there. I'm going to fix that real quick. We don't want anything holding us back. Okay, so we gotta have enough of this edge sticking out to capture it. This might not be enough because it's not wanting to capture it. I might have to stick that out a little further. Okay, we have a little bit more edge sticking out here. So I'm going to go down and make some little zigzag stitches that aren't visible. And then there's going to be one zigzag stitch that's a little bigger. And that one, you can see it on the outside, but since I'm using white thread on white fabric, it's super minimal. It's a really small stitch. And that is a blind hem. One big and a couple of small stitches, and then one more big one, some more small stitches. I should probably spare you the boredom of watching the entire hem that's like a gazillion inches long. Yeah, I'll just show you the final product at the end. is what the blind hem looks like from the outside. And this is what it looks like from the inside. Oh, come on, I know you can zoom in. There we go, yep. That's what it looks like on the inside. Very exciting. We have our quite large pockets here. As I said, I put the belt loops on. Belt loops for the purpose of having a belt. Plenty of belt loops in the back to make sure it doesn't do that weird thing with the belt above the waistband. And our back pockets. Gotta love back pockets. Oh, by the way, this top also available in my shop. Hey Michael, can I borrow your phone for a moment?
Yeah.
I need to use it as a prop. Thanks. Phone size pocket.